Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here? Who is this person that is talking to me? Can I trust him? Is he helping me? There must be something wrong. This place, it doesn't seem natural. He's giving me advice. What's this contract that he's talking about? This is Bloodborne. You end up playing the role of a hunter of beasts. You are being sent into the field on the night of the hunt. There are many strange things afoot, many mysteries to be solved, and many things that just can't be explained. So now, I think it's time that we should take a look at Bloodborne on the PlayStation 4. A game released in March of 2015. It's from Software, which you will obviously know is the maker of the Soul series. It has a lot of elements from the Soul series of games in it. It's PlayStation 4 exclusive. I've only recently been able to experience this game due to only just recently getting a PlayStation 4. As soon as I got the console, this is one of the two games that I immediately purchased for it. I am only about 10 to 15 hours in on the game, so this is close to an first impressions. It has a lot of mechanics and ideas from previous Soul games in it. The game has much more of a gothic look than the previous entries in the Soul series. This can be found in the art styling to the architecture. Some of the views and vistas that you get to see in this game are breathtaking. Areas are filled with so much detail. All these little details just help you to get more absorbed in the world that you are playing in. In the game, there's a location known as the Hunter's Dream. This is like a hub where you can go to level up, buy items and equipment, and lastly, to visit locations. As like most other Soul games, there is a currency in the game. With this one, it's called Blood Echoes. You gain this by either killing enemies or through consuming items. Blood Echoes can be used to level up your character, improve weapons, and buy items and equipment. It can lead to interesting choices when faced on how to spend the blood echoes you've accumulated. In this game, you only have 6 primary stats. Vitality, which boosts hit points. Endurance, which boosts stamina. Strength, which increases your attack power. Skill, which can be best described as increasing your proficiency with fast weapons. Blood Tinge, which improves your firearms. And Arcane, which boosts your magic. I find it interesting that with this game, there was a creative choice to actually go with a low number of primary stats. In Dark Souls 2, there was 9. I also think that the character information screen is a lot more easy to take in. If I show you the same screen from Dark Souls 2, it looks very cluttered and complicated in comparison to what we're presented with in Bloodborne. The last characteristic that I'd like to talk about is insight. This is something that can be both increased and decreased throughout the game. In a sense, insight gives you the ability to be able to see things beyond the world in front of you. The higher that this stat is, the more information you'll be able to get from the world around you. So that's all the nitty-gritty complicated stuff dealt with. Moving on to combat. This game feels a lot faster than previous titles. The weapons still have the feeling of weight, but when you throw in the dodge mechanics of this game, it does make the game feel a lot faster. When talking about the combat of this game, I'd like to think of it as tactical action. You have to know your own capabilities. You have to know the weapon that you're using. You need to manage your stamina, and you have to balance your offensive and defensive play. Primary weapons in this game are known as trick weapons. This means, with a simple press of a button, the weapon transforms into a slightly different form. This means all primary weapons have two sets of moves to them. Your secondary weapon is normally a firearm. When you first start out in the game, this is mainly used to interrupt enemies, just like a parry would in any of the Souls games. But as you progress in the game, you can get more devastating weapons as your firearms choice. Magic is in the game, and they are items that you can equip. They use the same ammo type as your firearm. It is the player's decision how to best use these three different types of weapons, which allows for variety in the way that you play. The combat in this game is definitely one of its strong points. So let's talk about the elephant in the room: difficulty. From Software, with the Souls series, has established a reputation for making hard and punishing games. In recent years, this idea of making hard games has been incorporated into their advertising for the Souls series. Bloodbourne follows in this same tradition. The game can be as difficult as you want it to be, but due to their clever game design, the player has some control over the difficulty of the game. A channel called Extra Credits has done a video about the difficulty in Dark Souls 2, explaining the various game mechanics From Software put into the game to allow the player to control the difficulty. Their video can explain this a lot better than what I can, so I will be putting a link to the video in the description if you want to get a better idea of what I'm touching on. But as a simple summary of some of the things that you, the player, have control of when it comes to the difficulty of the game, are whether or not you participate in co-op to seek assistance to get through difficult sections or bosses. Your weapon choice also is a factor. I myself like to use weapons with a bit of range, so I don't have to be so close to what I'm trying to kill. And lastly, the other factor that affects the difficulty in the game is the way that you allocate your stats as you level up. Sure, it's a good idea to put points into your offensive stats, but early on in the game, to make it easier, it's wiser to put more into vitality so you can take more hits. It's also worth noting that your healing items work off of a percentage, so by putting more points into vitality, you actually increase how much you can heal for. So closing thoughts. I really like this game. It's a great addition to the Souls series. By lowering the amount of core stats that you can invest points into, it might leave the normal Souls player feeling that they are missing something, when in fact by reducing the complexity, it's made this game more accessible. The only thing to nitpick about would be the fact that the game is designed to run at 1080p at 30 frames per second. Even with the current updates applied to the game, I do from time to time suffer in drops in frames per second. This has left me with an interesting thought though. I wish with console games on the current generation we could have a choice to be able to run a game at 1080p at 30 frames per second, or to run at a lower resolution with slightly less detail but be able to play it at 60 frames per second. I'm primarily a PC player, so I'm quite used to the idea of being able to tweak with your graphics options on games. It would be nice if some developers thought about options like this when developing a game. Some people like high detail, whilst others prefer stability and high frames per second. The last thing that I would like to bring up is the game that started the entire Souls series was Demon Souls. This was released as an exclusive on the PlayStation 3. This game shook up what was considered to be the norm and acceptable in regards to making an RPG. From that beginning, we then got the Dark Souls series. Given that Bloodborne doesn't have the legacy of the old generation tying it down, perhaps this is just a glimpse of what we have in store to come from Software in the future. This has been Bloodborne. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.